The experience of crime can have far-reaching and at times devastating impacts on victims and survivors. Let's listen to a mental health professional discussing the various trauma expectations involved with family members of missing 5-year-old Summer Wells.
Summer's parents told us the family is struggling to cope with the disappearance of the 5-year-old. One local mental health expert tells me that this is completely understandable.
They'll experience fear, insecurity, anger, a lot of the same things you would experience in grief. The presence of all of these strangers for the most part, and the complexities of all these individuals with different activities is very confusing, very frightening, and very anxiety-provoking.
He says negativity on social media is only adding to the problem.
Those emotions at that heightened level often come out in negative forms, negative ways, and people make assumptions and people make projections without the data or the support to know the truth behind all those assumptions.
This can extend beyond the direct physical and psychological effects of the crime, potentially affecting a person's social, occupational, educational, and economic functioning. It is therefore important that true crime content creators attempt to understand and address the nature and impact of victimization to ensure that we are not re-victimizing them. Victims or survivors can be a particularly vulnerable group, and being traumatized a second time as a result of reliving their experience can be a very real and serious consequence of participating in the true crime genre. A secondary victim is an individual who was not directly involved in the crime but who has suffered vicarious trauma as a result, i.e. family members of a murdered or missing person. Not to be confused with secondary victimization, but secondary victims can fall foul to it. Secondary victimization occurs when the victim suffers further harm, not as a direct result of the criminal act, but due to the manner in which the other individuals deal with the victim. Those exposed to traumatic victimization are vulnerable to experiencing secondary victimization.
Now the adoptive dad's family says they're targets, not from authorities, but from the public.
It is misguided to blame uncles and aunts and grandparents for children who are missing that we love and care about and are trying to find.
Right now, there are people outside the home talking about where are the boys.
If social needs such as empathy, support, and understanding are not met, individuals are prone to this phenomenon. Up to 90% of victims report experiencing a negative social reaction and attribute the incident as a second assault. As a consequence of social rejections and insensitivities to acknowledging trauma or violence, victims often experience a decline in physical and mental health, the vast majority of which fail to seek services and treatment. Experiencing violence is associated with negative mental and physical outcomes, including shame, emotion dysregulation, psychological stress, loss of resources, and mental health pathology. Given these individuals are likely in a troubled state, pressures of reporting to authorities and to the media are cognitively taxing. After a traumatic incident, chemical alterations in the brain change, impacting encoding and processing the memory that can influence discrepancies in victims' reports and recollections of the event. As a result, law enforcement and news reporters could be met with victims explaining their stories inconsistently due to fragmented memory. Either by a neurobiological change or psychological response to particularly distressing trauma, victims may fall prey to the inability to coherently portray details of the event, thus taking away credibility and facilitating secondary victimization.
He will be missed here very much so. Cash was like my own son.
Can you tell me a little bit about the day when it happened?
Yeah, I woke up a little late because, like I said, Cash didn't wake me up. Cash is normally the one that wakes me up. In the morning, we get up about 7. We eat the breakfast. We do lunch and then naps. The day that he was missing, I got up late and I thought it was weird. It was kind of like, it's 10 o'clock, you guys, already. He wouldn't answer, so I called 911.
Did you look for him around the house?
Yes, they went all the way around the block, my boy. And he wasn't answering, and I knew something was wrong, something. We noticed Cash was gone, and I didn't even think about their surveillance system.
When did you look at the surveillance system?
When we were at the detective's office, still find Cash, and that little boy wasn't Cash. I kept telling my daughter, that's not Cash. And she said, Mommy, it has to be, nobody else is missing a baby.
When there was a report of a body that had been found?
And I said, no, it's not cash. And
when victims are met with hostile reactions, they are reinforced to not report. This is not only harmful to the individual, but to society as a whole. As a consequence of victim blaming and other negative attitudes towards the victims, reported rates of criminal abuse are low and distress in victims is high. In the immediate aftermath of a crime, when victims and other witnesses may be in a state of shock, details of their private lives may be pertinent to criminal investigations. In cases of serious crime, they may be frightened of or further traumatized by media attention.
But imagine the heartache and the pain that the disappearance of Summer has added now to this family dynamic, who has another missing person in the family. Again, completely different victimologies between the two people. I don't think they're in any way related. Now, there's an awful lot of speculation regarding this 12-minute interview that Dawn and Candace did with the press. We have to be so careful, folks, that we don't form opinions on a recording too quickly. I don't know, and I don't believe that you know Dawn and Candace well enough to speculate what they're saying. I mean, I've heard folks judging this tape using words like he said was instead of is, or there are experts out there who are analyzing this verbal exchange to determine whether there are deceptive markers or not. Now, we all might have our own opinions, and we should have our own opinions, but we should keep those and not judge openly. I hope that we can patiently wait while the professionals dissect each remark. I actually think, when I think of situations like this, of my mentor's words as I was learning how to be a profiler. We were preparing to interview a serial killer, and I had leaned on a strategy that I'd successfully used several times before. And I showed it to him, and he simply said in a very wise way, "He who is good with a hammer thinks everything is a nail." His message was clear. Every case, every interview, every element of every crime is unique, and a unique approach is needed on each case to get the most positive results.
Their well-being and that of their families may suffer. Their ability to work with law enforcement and assist prosecutors may be jeopardized. In this manner, participating in secondary victimization is not assisting justice, but obstructing it.